Muchas gracias.
Fenomenal. Muchas gracias, Blanca. Gracias a todos por estar aquí. Qué alegría ver nuevamente tantas caras conocidas y cómplices de esta historia. Y gracias en particular, Blanca, por la preparación de este evento de celebración. Pues sí, hace un año, en febrero de 2022, fruto del trabajo extraordinario de esta comunidad de aliados desde el 2019, alcanzamos el hito extraordinario del lanzamiento de LACNet, esta entidad orquestadora de servicios de red en blockchain, única en el ámbito global. Como ustedes saben, LACNet surge de la alianza entre RedCLARA y LACNIC, en colaboración con BitLab en el marco de esta alianza, y nace para orquestar de manera neutral y sostenible las redes blockchain de LACChain, y aún más allá, proveyendo una solución plenamente gobernada que asimila la gobernanza descentralizada de la blockchain a la gobernanza de Internet, para hacer frente a una nueva era tecnológica, la Web3. Quiero especialmente agradecer la colaboración al día de hoy, la presencia de los socios de LACNet, Luz Eliezer Cáceres, director ejecutivo de RedCLARA, y Óscar Robles. ¿Qué tal, Óscar? CEO de LACNIC. Y a Irene Arias, CEO de BitLab, por su liderazgo y por el mensaje grabado que nos dedicará más adelante. Irene tenía previsto asistir, pero no ha podido hacerlo por compromisos en la preparación de la Asamblea General del Banco Interamericano de Desarrollo. A través de LACNet, acercamos la Web3 a la comunidad desarrolladora, a los gobiernos, a los corporativos, a las startups que quieren hacer uso de esta tecnología para la vida real y prestar servicios a la ciudadanía de la región, proporcionando una infraestructura capaz de hacer frente a los retos que se vienen. Hemos repetido con orgullo que las redes blockchain orquestadas por LACNet han superado las expectativas en número de beneficiarios, habiendo impactado positivamente a más de 7,8 millones de personas al final del 2022, a través de 80 soluciones desplegadas en materia de salud, educación, empleo y muchas más. No me cansaré de reconocer y agradecerles a todos ustedes, los que han formado parte de esto desde un principio y los que ya se han sumado también más adelante, por compartir este sueño de materializar, apalancada con blockchain, la Web3. Cuando el mundo recién se prepara, nosotros ya estamos listos. LACNet está listo y totalmente disponible para el despliegue de sus proyectos con garantías de escalabilidad y en un grado de producción, con neutralidad y bajo regulación. Aprovecho además para anunciar una nueva iniciativa respaldada por BitLab para el desarrollo de billeteras digitales para la inclusión y la sostenibilidad, que se suma al respaldo incondicional y consistente que hemos ofrecido para el desarrollo de LACChain y LACNet. LACNet está comprometida a ofrecer a servicios, empresas y startups el mejor soporte disponible en el mercado. Nuestras redes son referencia global al ser la blockchain público permisionada de grado empresarial más grande del mundo. Por ello, estamos aquí para celebrar con ustedes este primer año de lo que esperamos sea una trayectoria larga, conjunta con ustedes y nosotros, exitosa, y que siga poniendo en valor lo que venimos construyendo juntos desde hace varios años atrás. Es para celebrar y quiero agradecerles de nuevo. Muchas gracias y un placer regresarte la palabra. Blanca, adelante.
Muchas gracias, Alejandro, y gracias a todos quienes nos acompañan. Daniel, si podemos ver rápidamente la slide de la traducción disponible para quienes van ingresando, sepan cómo pueden hacer uso de esta interpretación simultánea disponible. Si tienen alguna duda, les invitamos a hacer uso del chat para que podamos auxiliarles. Y bueno, pues muchas gracias. Les invitamos a ver el siguiente video que nos comparte Irene Arias, CEO de BitLab.
Hola, soy Irene Arias Hoffman, CEO de BitLab, el Laboratorio de Innovación del Grupo Banco Interamericano de Desarrollo, y estoy encantada de estar aquí hoy con nuestros aliados de LACChain y LACNet para conmemorar el primer aniversario de la creación de LACNet. BitLab tiene como mandato impulsar a través de la innovación la inclusión social y económica, sobre todo de poblaciones pobres y vulnerables en América Latina y Caribe, y también activar nuevos motores de crecimiento. Y es por eso que en 2019 apostamos por la creación de la Alianza LACChain, que hoy cuenta con más de 60 aliados que están juntos construyendo el desarrollo del ecosistema blockchain en toda la región. Estamos muy contentos, además, porque recientemente en los premios INADVA 2023 LACChain fue galardonada en la categoría de innovación social. Estos son premios que reconocen el trabajo, la colaboración y los logros de la comunidad y la industria blockchain a nivel global y reconoce a LACChain como proyecto blockchain DLT de alto impacto social por su contribución en estándares internacionales. Y no solo eso, con este premio LACChain ya acumula 11 reconocimientos a nivel global, entre premiaciones, nominaciones y referencias de grupos internacionales de estandarización. Pero sobre todo quiero compartir la noticia más importante, que es el impacto que ha tenido LACChain en ya casi 8 millones de personas, sobre todo personas pobres y vulnerables que antes estaban desatendidas. Entonces, hoy que celebramos el primer aniversario de que se haya habilitado la primera red blockchain público permisionada, multipropósito en producción y de grado empresarial a través de LACNet, es un momento en el que podemos llevar esto todavía a mayor escala y beneficiar billones más de personas. LACNet es el vehículo orquestador de las redes blockchain de LACChain y es una herramienta que permite potenciar de manera neutral y sostenible el alcance y los logros de LACChain para hacer realidad el sueño de tener un gran espacio blockchain común para la región, interoperable y abierto, y que haga accesible y fácil de usar blockchain para todos los ciudadanos de América Latina y Caribe y crear así un futuro más próspero y más inclusivo, no solo en América Latina y Caribe, también a nivel global. Desde BitLab queremos agradecer muy particularmente a los socios fundadores de LACNet, RedCLARA, la cooperación latinoamericana de redes avanzadas, y LACNIC, el registro de direcciones de Internet de América Latina y Caribe, por el apoyo brindado para hacer esto una realidad. Y celebraciones como la de hoy son importantes para visibilizar el extraordinario potencial que ha demostrado la tecnología blockchain para dar acceso a servicios financieros y no financieros, proporcionar identidad digital y asegurar la propiedad de sus datos a poblaciones excluidas del sistema formal. Es una de las tecnologías emergentes con gran potencial de hacer más eficientes los mercados de bienes y servicios. Y además asegura una mayor transparencia e inalterabilidad en el registro de transacciones, como lo demuestran las 80 soluciones desplegadas en sectores como educación, agricultura, salud, sector financiero, sobre las redes orquestadas por LACNet. Bueno, por esto quiero felicitar al equipo de LACNet por su compromiso de proporcionar una infraestructura robusta para desplegar proyectos y soluciones blockchain con garantías de escalabilidad y que además es ideal tanto para gobiernos como para sociedad civil, academia y sector privado, incluyendo startups. Muchas gracias y vamos a por más.
Muchas gracias a Irene y muchas gracias por todo el apoyo a BitLab. Estamos de fiesta, un año transcurrido desde el lanzamiento de LACNet. Les invitamos a ver ahora el siguiente video de aniversario. Muchas gracias y muchas felicidades a los socios de LACNet. Queremos extender esta invitación, esta felicitación a sus equipos, a todos quienes formamos parte del equipo LACNet. Muchas felicidades por este primer año cumplido. Bien, cedo la palabra a Ilan Meléndez, Head of Memberships and Business Development de LACNet, para fungir como moderador en esta segunda mitad del encuentro. Adelante, Ilan.
Muchas gracias, Blanca. Muchas gracias a todos los que hoy nos acompañan. Voy a hacer un cambio a inglés porque hoy tenemos unos invitados muy especiales. So I'll switch to English now as we have some very special and important guests today. Please welcome Marcos Allende, CTO of LACChain, Dan Burnett, Executive Director of Enterprise Ethereum Alliance, Daniela Barbosa, Hyperledger Executive Director at Linux Foundation, and Mariana De La Roche, Co-Chair at INADBA. Welcome.
Thank you.
And thank you very much, Marcos, Dan, Daniela, and Mariana for joining us today in this special occasion for us. We wanted to prepare something special for today, and actually it's inviting you to have a conversation around Web3. And I wanted to ask you some of the questions that maybe we can have like 5 minutes to discuss. And at the end, we will have like a round table and some questions from the audience as well. So Marcos, how would you describe the evolution of blockchain networks over the past 4 years and how LACChain has been working towards that evolution and vision?
Well, thanks so much for the question, Ilan, and hi everyone. Also, hi, and thanks the different panelists that I have the pleasure to share the table with today. So regarding this question and to make it quick, I remember when we started building LACChain back in 2018, 2019, and I remember having 3 conversations ongoing that have taken a very concrete shape today. One was the debate between public and private blockchains. You know, back then it was a big fight. And I think that fight has ended in the death of private blockchains and the consolidation of public blockchains, both in the permission and in the permissionless side. I think permissionless blockchain networks are today much more scalable and much more reliable than they were back then. And also permission public blockchains like LACChain and like EPSI and Aniversario in Spain are also being recognized by enterprise solutions as the best way to go, and the different consensus mechanisms that rely on different things than just crypto have also, you know, become something relevant. A second conversation that we had back then was the concept of the Internet of Value, how, you know, blockchain could empower or enable the Internet of Value. I think the Internet of Value is now what everyone is calling Web3, a new generation of applications and platforms that is leveraging things like tokenization, digital assets, and other elements. And the third thing was self-sovereign identity. That was something that we started talking about back then. And today, self-sovereign identity is being consolidated in a new generation of digital wallets. We see how the European Union is launching for the next year the EU ID wallet. All European Union member countries have the mandate to provide a digital wallet to citizens. And we will see with that how very soon we will start having a new generation of digital credentials and tokens that are relying on blockchain networks and that are integrated with this Web3. So this is, you know, how I've seen the evolution over the past 4, 5, 6 years and the exciting times where we are at right now.
Thank you, Marcos. I would like to pass the word this time to Daniela. Thank you for joining us, Daniela.
Hola.
Daniela, will you? Hola. Daniela, will you introduce yourself and share a little bit of what you are doing and what the Hyperledger Foundation is doing lately?
Absolutely. Well, first, mucho gusto estar aquí hoy.
I think
we're foundation since 2017. Oh, can you hear me? Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah, a little bit
Yes.
choppy, but I
Nope.
think it's okay now.
Okay, I'll try. I'm in Barcelona actually on a Wi-Fi, so I apologize. This is the hotel Wi-Fi. So the Hyperledger Foundation since 2016 has been a place for technologists, companies, government agencies, and more to collaborate together to build open source blockchain and blockchain related technologies, including some that are digital identity related that we just discussed as well. So we are a nonprofit. We are part of some of the world's largest and most innovative companies are part of the Hyperledger Foundation. Companies like Accenture and IBM and Fujitsu and Huawei. We're a truly global community. And also lots of regional organizations that work in government infrastructure, for example, like the Monetary Authority of Singapore, or central banks like the Central Bank of France and others. We are really a diverse ecosystem of developers first and subject matter experts working together in the open with open development practices to build these open source projects. LACChain and LACNet have been associate members of the Hyperledger Foundation since 2021. And we've had the pleasure of working with the LACNet team with your contributions and knowledge and expertise at events like our annual Global Forum event or representing the Hyperledger Foundation at on-site events like Consensus, for example. And we're very grateful for all the contributions that the team there has done. We also just recently published a fantastic case study that really helps the world understand how blockchain is being used and the value of blockchain. And we can access that off our website, but it's been really, really fabulous for us to be able to tell the LACChain and LACNet story globally, worldwide, and all the contributions that you've done. So we're very excited about being here today, about celebrating your first year anniversary, and seeing how else we can collaborate with the community there.
Well, I think that some of the lines of collaboration that we are moving forward is related to the quantum resistance efforts and cryptographic. How critical and sensitive is quantum resistance for Hyperledger?
Well, I think, everyone is certainly looking at it. And as we move to a world where powerful quantum computers seem more and more likely like a reality, right? It's not just on TV anymore. It is really important that we protect ourselves for the future. And this goes to say also with our code projects within the Hyperledger Foundation. Data that is encrypted with quantum insecure cryptography today might still be sensitive when these quantum computers are powerful enough to run these large instances. So we need to be ready to be able to avoid those kind of security issues. And we want to make sure that our community has a plan in place for quantum security. And this is why we're so happy to be partnering with LACNet and LACChain team, because you bring that expertise to the table, and the amount of work that you can bring on board will help us accelerate some of these systems and research that we need to do to make sure that we can comply with future requirements.
Thank you very much, Daniela. Let me jump to talk about Enterprise Ethereum Alliance, actually, with Daniel Burnett. And thank you, actually, Dan, for joining us today. Dan, will you tell us a little bit more about the Enterprise Ethereum Alliance as an organization, who's part of it, and how LACChain and LACNet can contribute and is contributing to this alliance?
Yes, thank you for having me. Very pleased to be here today. So the Enterprise Ethereum Alliance is a nonprofit industry association whose goal is to foster and help adoption of Ethereum-based products and services by businesses. And so we do that in a variety of ways. We do that through primarily through education on not just blockchain, but why Ethereum, right, in particular, as I would argue the leading public non-permissioned blockchain out there. Also networking among our members, and then also standards development, which is one of the things we've historically been known for. A couple of standards I want to talk about. Actually, so we have both member standards and community standards, so I'll talk about both of those. So on the member standards side, there's a couple I want to talk about that I think are quite significant. One is the DeFi Risk Assessment, Management, and Accounting Group, or DRAMA. That group in particular is looking at the needs that those evaluating traditional, whether it's a blockchain protocol, a crypto protocol, a DeFi platform, the challenges that exist in auditing them and in understanding just how safe or secure they might be. With a traditional business, most auditors know for that particular kind of business what the common risks are and what the common mitigations are. And so when they do an audit, they're not just doing a financial audit, they're also auditing the processes of that organization to make sure that their processes address the common risks for that type of organization. The problem for DeFi is that it's still not even clear what all of the risks are. And I think as you hear the very public media stories about blockchain, that's what you're hearing. You're basically hearing some of the ways in which problems can occur. Some of them are traditional, but some of them are very novel to DeFi. And so what this group is trying to do is to actually first just document what are the new risks that exist in a DeFi space, risks for anyone who's considering working with a DeFi project. And then eventually the group will move on to documenting common mitigations for such risks. The other effort that I want to talk about is ETH Trust. And the goal of this group is to develop standards for smart contract security audits with easy labels, simple, medium, advanced, right? So, it's a real challenge for businesses who are not experts in this kind of technology to do any kind of value judgment about what's necessary for a smart contract security audit, or to understand whether it's been done properly. And we know that that businesses benefit tremendously by having these simple labels that are actually defined and declared by those who actually understand the technology. So that's what that group's been working on and has already released an initial draft specification for that. On the community side, the EEA community projects has a couple that I want to talk about. One is Baseline. Some of you may already be familiar with Baseline. Baseline is essentially a set of libraries and best practices for doing multi-party collaboration, and specifically to prove that multi-party collaboration has happened. So it uses blockchain technology, but the libraries are written in such a way that people who actually don't even know much about it can still use that. And we found that this multi-party proof of transaction is phenomenally valuable for companies. So that's one group, that's Baseline. And then the other one is the Layer 2 working group. And that group is specifically looking at as there are layers built on top of Ethereum, in particular, the Layer 2s, where are areas where they might need to actually collaborate and come to some agreement? One of the first of these is just on the names of tokens and the relationships between tokens, right? So that a wrapped BTC here is intended to mean the same thing as a BTC here, and so on, right? So it's difficult right now. If you go to essentially, if you look at any sort of traditional asset, you can likely find a unique identifier for it, or you can at least tell what it's supposed to mean across different exchanges. That's not the case today. Every exchange today, if you do some researching as an individual, you can figure out, oh yeah, this is supposed to be the same as this, but there's no place that actually states that that's the intent. So that's one of the first items that they've worked on. They're looking at some others now in the zero knowledge space as well. And you mentioned, so LACChain, LACNet. I just want to say, you guys joined us fairly recently. One of the things that I was very excited about when you and I spoke, Ilan, was that we definitely see on the public side, Ethereum is the dominant public network. Public non-permissioned network, okay? But one of the things that you guys did that was just so great is to right from the beginning to address the challenges that that governmental and regulatory agencies have for the operations that they need to perform, right? That's always been a concern with using, non-permission networks to know how can you trust it? How can you make sure that, when we start putting our property records on this thing, how do we know that it's going to, it's going to not only not be modified, which you can be assured on Ethereum, but how do we know that we have the control over that change and that no one else can possibly adjust that? So I really love what you did by instead of trying to create a whole bunch of little chains that are all trying to figure out how to work with governments, instead you created one that is purpose built to operate in that way. I think that's fabulous. One of the things that I don't see a lot of yet, but I'd love to see more of, is actual bridging and interchanges and interoperation between actions that may happen on Ethereum and actions that may happen on LACChain. That's something that I think could really end up fully bridging the gap between where governmental entities are that have strong obligations to their constituencies, but still being able to take advantage of some of the innovation that's happening in the non-permission space.
Mhm. Excellent.
And I believe that many of attendees today will listen that message and go to their companies and say, hey, yes, we were thinking about it and it's true, right? Our idea was actually validated. So yeah, it's very challenging and also inspirational to think how we can bridge the infrastructure that we have deployed through LACChain and how we can connect it to the public networks. So in speaking actually about public and permission networks, how do you see the permissioned infrastructure, especially in the case of data sensitive and in cases of verifiable credentials and CBDCs? Do you see a kind of competitive platform? What is your vision about it?
Right. So I believe that with respect to CBDCs, permissioning is essential, of course, right? And there are permissioning solutions being built on top of Ethereum as layer 2s. This is why I made the comment that I did before you even asked that question, right? Which is that it's important to understand that and I guess many of you do, right? That, that for many governmental entities, they just don't even know where to start. And for those who are building layer 2 solutions directly on top of Ethereum, to some extent, they're beginning from scratch and trying to properly convince governmental entities that their solution can be trusted and it provides the controls that they need. So there's no doubt that permissioning is going to be required for CBDCs. The question is whether there will be a sort of a standardization in where that occurs, and that could be on LACChain, or it might be. I mean, we're definitely hearing from various regulatory regions. Some are developing their own chains independently. They just decided, we don't trust anybody's chain, we're going to do our own. So I think that's a case where we might still see some private chains, but for sure permissioned is a requirement, period. Now, with respect to verifiable credentials and decentralized identifiers, I'm just going to mention this so people understand. I was the original author of the verifiable credentials spec, and I'm one of the creators of both that and decentralized identifiers. So I know a lot about them. I was a strong proponent, obviously, many years ago when we started working on them, probably 2014, 2015. So I'm thrilled to see them getting adopted. It's important to make sure they're adopted in the right way. And one of the key features of the design of both of them was that they were intended to operate with multiple different DIDs. Okay, so there could be many different issuers of these identifiers that then can be used. This is really important because if you look at a lot of earlier identity mechanisms, they tended to centralize very quickly in just a small number of commercial entities providing them, and that's led to some of the problems we have today. We are seeing a little bit of a distribution there. So To me, it's important that in both verifiable credentials, specifically decentralized identifiers, that the identifiers are anchored on a chain or connected to a chain where verifiable credentials themselves are not directly. But for DIDs, it's actually important to me to see that there are many, many different DID issuers and that they're issued on a variety of different chains. I think it would be risky to find that we end up with these identifiers only being anchored on one or two chains. I think once again, you've lost a lot of the benefit of that. So much as I love Ethereum and much as I love LACChain, right? I'm hoping that we'll actually see these identifiers anchored on a large number of chains, and so far there is evidence that that's likely to occur. I don't know if that really answered your question. Feel free to probe deeper if you need to.
Actually, thank you very much, and we will open some space to the audience to also ask and probably elaborate a little bit more on that. But thank you, Dan. Dan, let me jump into Mariana because she is coming from INATBA. Thank you, Mariana, for joining us.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mariana.
Mariana.
Thank you very much. I was requested to do it in English, right? So should I stay in English or should I move to Spanish?
Yeah, either way is fine. Yeah.
Either way is fine, I guess. We have translation, so yeah, feel free to.
Mariana, would you help us to learn a little bit more about INATBA as an organization, who's part of it, and how LACChain, LACNet entities contribute to the organization?
Sure. Just I'm gonna keep it in English, I guess then. Well, INATBA is the International Association for Trusted Blockchain Applications, and is one of the biggest and most prominent blockchain associations worldwide. We have like over 170 international members, and this includes global banks, VC, industry representatives. We also have small startups, entrepreneurs, and we also have governments and NGOs. And we have been in the space since 2019. And basically, we offer a global forum to interact with regulators or policymakers and bring blockchain technologies that bring the conversations to the next stage. So we also have an academic advisory board, which is built with professors from all over the world, which advise the work that the working groups are doing. The working groups is a task force that you can imagine in 6 different topics: standardization, finance, social impact. We have also one regarding identities. So there are multiple topics, and the members of INATBA participate in those working groups and define the priorities that will be addressed during that year. For example, I'm actually the part of the regulatory affairs team of the IOTA Foundation, and we are founding members of INATBA, and therefore I was appointed as co-chair of social impact and the social impact and sustainable working group, and this is my 3rd year in a row leading the group. And we also have the governmental advisory board, where LACChain is actually part of the governmental advisory board, and this is a multi-stakeholder kind of collective that facilitates the discussion between governmental advisory bodies, regulators, and international organizations. Currently, we have 37 members, if I'm not wrong, and it goes across Africa, the Americas, Asia, Australia, and we have a lot of presence in Europe. And basically, they just facilitate cooperation in an advisory capacities to the directors, the board of directors of INATBA, as well as the work of some of the working groups. For example, LACChain, especially thank you to Albi and Blanca that are currently active in the social impact working group with us. We plan to do a report, which is more trying to showcase the different use cases that are in Latin America working towards blockchain towards SDGs. And we are going to select some lighthouse projects that we can showcase to also show to other regions what is going on in Latin America and what are the use cases that we can maybe replicate to get contact to see how we can cooperate with them. So that's basically what INADPA is doing. On the social impact side, we have, like, as I mentioned, different working groups. One of them, and I was really interested to hear Daniel and what he was saying about the first task force, because we are currently actually like running a report on DeFi, and we want to understand the need for regulation or a potential self-regulation on the DeFi space. And in parallel of that, together with the IOTA Foundation, we are running a survey. Daniel, I'm gonna send it to you so you can share it maybe with your network about the DeFi definition. So we want to understand what is the definition that like different sectors have about DeFi, and try to see how we can create, or if there is the need to create unified definition, especially when we address the regulatory parties. So when like it's really important to have like, or speak the same language. So when we regulate the same, basically, on a way of speak. I don't know if I answered all your question there, but I think that that's how you have been active so far.
Thank you very much, Mariana, for highlighting us some of the initiatives that INADPA is leading. And well, we are very happy and honored for the award that you recently gave us. But we would like to learn a little bit more about the other categories and some other of the winners. Do you have a context of the other categories recognized in this award?
Yeah, so basically, and I think that like this is also important, like the main idea, one of the things that we do as INADPA is to advocate for the adoption of blockchain, and we do it like in certain levels, like we work a lot like with regulators, but one of the major things that we want to do right now is actually like to give visibility to projects that are doing a great job. So at the end, this award was to actually recognize that. So it was open to both members and not members of INADPA. We received over 60 applications in total, and those applications were reviewed by the board of directors. And they selected for each category that then was, we asked the members to vote for their favorite project. So this was more or less the project, the process. And like the different categories was, we have the most exciting DeFi project, and the winners were Folk Finance, which there are in Italy, and is a non-custodian DeFi protocol that is built on Algorand, if I'm not mistaken. And they provide like different DeFi tools for managing digital assets, for example. Then we have the most exciting ReFi project, and Ethics Hub was the winner in this category. They are based in Spain, and they provide affordable loans to smallholder farmers. So, and they're executed also that are especially excluded from the TRAFI by different reasons, like they cannot access to loans or don't fulfill the requirements to access to loan into the traditional finance market. So they can apply via Ethics Hub to one of the loans. So that's a really interesting use case. They have a smart contract-based crowd lending platform, if I'm not mistaken. And then awesome. Education. We have the education category, and was Nicosia University, which is a university in Cyprus, who won. I was really happy with that award because they manage also the European Blockchain Observatory and Forum, and they are also part of an initiative we have with INADPA and IOTA called BC 100+, which is an initiative backed by the UN General Assembly, which is trying to bridge blockchain projects with international associations or NGOs that are trying to solve issues and like see how blockchain can enhance or accelerate the work that they are doing, so they can have major impact. So I was really happy when they won. They also have, I think, the first course totally in the metaverse, so they are like doing really great things. And then the last one.
Thank you.
The last one was corporate innovation, but like Smart Response one, which has like Italy and Spain, and I don't really remember all the information about them, but like I think that you already got an overview.
Awesome. Now, let me take just a minute, the opportunity to recognize that the prize regarding social innovation that we won actually belongs to this community, and there are several of our allies that actually deploy their solutions over the LACChain networks orchestrated by LACNet that are actually achieving the impacts and results that we are talking about. So thank you for the comments, and go Peru in particular, and recognizing the fact that is the Global Alliance and all its partners that have been recognized by this award in particular. Go ahead, Ilan. Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Alejandro. No, we just before moving on to the next step of the roundtable, with each one of us sharing our ideas, I would like to ask, because recently it was announced by Hyperledger Foundation in the initiative of Open Wallet. Daniela, would you tell us a little bit of what is the purpose of this initiative called Open Wallet? Because there is also a connection, as Alejandro said at the beginning. We are also promoting a big project for this year, where it's wallets for inclusion. So there is a strong connection between them. Would you share a little bit about
we're actually creating the first interoperable protocol for digital wallets for the whole region. So I think we should be part of the Spanish initiative, and very, very happy to make that as soon as possible. Go ahead.
So a couple of things before I launch into the open wallet, because I think this is indicative of what we're here to take, where we have like agency organizations like CONATVA that are working on advocacy and research. We have the EEA that are working on standards and specifications, and then the Hyperledger Foundation working on code, right? And the code that then these solutions that LACNet then use and then contribute back. So I think it's a beautiful circle of how open source and how these systems and these new infrastructures are being built. So, congratulations to all again for the collaboration that we see. At the Linux Foundation, we are very interested, and our goal is to really have the most important open source projects across many industries and many use cases. The Open Wallet Foundation is one of our newest one. It's a sister project to the Hyperledger Foundation. The Hyperledger Foundation is obviously supporting the work that we've done there, because we have projects like Hyperledger Aries, which is a wallet agent, and AnonCreds, which is part of our digital identity projects that will obviously be used as part of Open Wallet as well. So we just launched on 2/23, so February 23rd, we launched the Open Wallet Foundation as a new project here at the Linux Foundation. And it really is a place for organizations, for governments, for individuals to come together and build a collaboratively an open engine. We're not building wallets. What we're building is basically the infrastructure and the technologies needed to build an open wallet, a digital wallet engine. So the way that we're going to do that is by collaborating with the payments companies, companies like Visa, for example, that has joined the telecom companies. I'm here at Mobile Web Congress in Barcelona this week. The telecommunications industry is very interested in not only participating, but contributing to the Open Wallet Foundation, because they see that digital wallets are going to be critical to the infrastructures and the services that they're going to provide for digital consumers as well. So the Open Wallet Foundation is going to fall under the same way that our Linux Foundation projects operate. It is going to be an open community where people can come and contribute their code. They can also contribute to existing code projects that then will be released as open source projects that go along. So we're very excited about that. And we very much look forward to your contributions and your participating in that project as well.
Antonas.
Thank you. Thank you, Daniela. And maybe I would like to, and maybe we can start with you, Daniela, to share an idea of in which emerging technologies related to digital assets are you most excited about, and why?
Well, I think, For us, very often the boring stuff is the stuff that actually brings a lot of value and efficiency to markets, right? So, people don't want to talk about supply chain anymore, right? They're like tired of talking about blockchain use cases, supply chain. But the reality is that those kind of use cases are bringing those, creating digital assets, and more and more so even liquidity on tokenization of assets is something that is important to enterprises, to government, and to individuals. So one of the things that I always advocate for is the boringest of the blockchain use cases are the ones primarily that today are being adopted and already bringing value to enterprises as well. So I think we need to, think about new use cases. For example, DeFi, we talked recently about, DeFi and where opportunities are in the market for decentralized finance use cases. I think we are seeing a lot of experimentation. I think close to 95% of the central banks, for example, are at some stage of research, experimentation, or deployment for central bank digital currencies or digital currencies as a whole. These are all systems that are ways that we can provide innovation and efficiencies to the market, and hopefully to the consumer. We're also seeing a lot of use cases from a digital identity perspective, with countries, for example, like the government of British Columbia, really leading the way in using decentralized identity, self-sovereign principles in building for their consumers. And you can go to the Apple store and actually see that the government of British Columbia has a digital identity wallet that they've released, uses Hyperledger, Aries, Indy, and Anoncred as part of the Hyperledger Foundation digital stack. But these are the kind of things that governments are leading. And obviously in Europe as well, with Idios, there's ways that the governments can participate. And one of the things that at the Hyperledger Foundation, we want to make sure is it's a place for the government organizations to also come in and contribute code. So when we start seeing the end users at the enterprise level, and then the government actually contributing and participating in these open source projects, we know that they're going to be critical into infrastructure that citizens around the world will use. So I think, with the Hyperledger Foundation over the last 7 years, the communities that we've built, the code projects, we're now up to 16 projects, different special interest groups, and really different ways for organizations, for government entities to all contribute and make these projects better to use. So we're really excited about the different use cases that we see around the world.
Thank you, Daniela. Let me go with Marcos now. Marcos, in your case, which emerging technologies related to digital assets are most excited about, and why?
Yeah, so actually similar to what Daniela was saying, that the most interesting for her are the things that are most boring for others. In my case, I would say that the most interesting things for me are the most challenging, right? The ones that present a bigger opportunity to do something disruptive. And here, something that I would like to share is a concern about how, decentralization that is not well implemented can become disconnection. Daniel was talking a lot about, how different DIDs can be implemented in different networks, how it is important to start connecting with bridges like permission networks with permissionless layers, how layers 2s can now be used to implement things like CBDCs. And it is very, very important that from a technological perspective, we start developing solutions that are as decentralized as possible, but are not disconnected, because there's too many things right now happening, and not all of them are interoperable. And in this sense, not only we need technology to interoperate, but we also need frameworks. And we have the best people at the table today that are pushing this type of frameworks and collaborations to start doing things in the same way, right? And a couple more things that I would like to say that I think are challenging and therefore are also exciting is, one, the quantum resistance. We are at the beginning of a hype right now in the quantum age. There's a lot of people talking about it. We saw a couple articles in the Financial Times at the beginning of the year talking about quantum and blockchain and that. And I think it is the moment where we need to join forces and start developing technology and frameworks that allow blockchain networks to become quantum resistant. Daniela and you, Ilan, were mentioning before this working group that we intend to create. We are already working with entities like the Tech of Monterrey, MIT, Berkeley, and Quantinum in the UK in order to develop a solution. We have already invited other people in the LACChain ecosystem that are today in the call to join us to try to achieve this big and important goal. And one last thing that I would like to say is now that we are entering this new generation of verifiable credentials, also in terms of what Dan was saying, something that is very important is that for certain use cases, it is essential to know who is behind the DID issuer or the issuer's DID. Like in order to accept a COVID certificate or a diploma, we need to know who is the entity issuing that COVID certificate or that diploma. So in these cases, we need to have public key directories that are global and that allows us to trust a specific DID for the issuance of a specific credential or a specific token. Being able to unify these key directories and having the, also the frameworks to enable global recognition and verification is something that we also need to achieve. And hopefully, efforts like what the digital, like the OpenID wallet and also the European EUID collaboration are doing will lead us in this path. So that's from my side, Ilan.
Excellent.
Thank you, Marcos. Dan, in your case, what are you most excited about in terms of emerging technologies?
All right. So so most of the conversation so far has not been about technology. It's actually been about other things, which I agree. I agree with all the comments from Daniela and Marcos, except that actually DIDs, you need to know who issued them, but it doesn't need to be a centralized location. That's one of the, anyway, so we could talk more about that. That's one of the advantages of it on purpose, okay? But yes, verifiers need to know who's issuing and decide who they're going to trust. All right. Yeah, but I'll talk about a technology. Zero knowledge proofs. In the Ethereum space, this is incredible. Okay, the progress here has been amazing, and it continues to accelerate. The reason it's so valuable is because of privacy. It allows you to confirm that transactions are correct in a public network without revealing the contents of them. And I think, as a primitive, privacy is one of the features that used to drive people to creating only private networks. Right? It was a need for privacy. And now you can begin to get that with public permissionless networks. That's going to end up just being another tool in the toolbox that still allows you to use that world trust layer of Ethereum. And so that's something that I'm really excited about. There are things I can't talk about. I've heard people tell me privately in terms of the zero knowledge proofs, where basically within a very short time frame, we're going to start seeing essentially any Ethereum virtual machine or EVM compatible computation being provable in very short proofs. This is really remarkable. So this is a big step. There's a reason that people are talking about it a lot. So that's the main one that I want to mention from a technology standpoint.
Thank you very much, Dan. And Mariana, probably in 1 minute that we have left, from your perspective.
Okay, then I had like SSI, but was already mentioned. I think that like one that like was missing there, and I think that is really interesting, is tokenization, because it will provide like a lot of use cases in regards to asset liquidity, but also financial inclusion, and that goes hand by hand with like the new governance structure that I really, really like, especially with the DAOs and the DeFi coming on right now. So especially like the governance structure that we are seeing right now, where like you are more responsible of the decisions that are going that involve you, and all this like coming back to the direct democratization. Like I found really, really interesting on that sense. But at the end, and I think that that's the most important thing for me, is that like the solutions that we are creating, regardless of how innovative they are, they should focus on problems that we actually have here already, like poverty, climate change, inequality. Those are things that are not new, and the solutions that we are generating should go in a direction where we also support those, even if they are not in blockchain, working on these, so we can accelerate the impact that they are trying to create. So that will be like my call to action to everyone here to focus on those kind of projects.
Thank you very much, Mariana. And well, thank you all for joining us today. Please, Daniela, Dan, Marcos, and Mariana, thank you all very much for attending the call. Let me go to Alejandro and pass the word to you, Alejandro. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Ilan and Blanca, for preparing all this. Thank you, Marcos, Dan, Daniela, and Mariana for your valuable time and these very interesting reflections. Gracias a los aliados del LACNet, a Irene, que como han visto es defensora y un respaldo institucional increíble para hacer todo esto realidad. A todos los aliados de LACChain que estuvieron desde el principio y que siguen aquí perseverando y construyendo con nosotros la web para el futuro, y a esta maravillosa comunidad que confía en nosotros y sin cuyo esfuerzo y sin cuya colaboración, sin cuyas aportaciones, jamás hubiéramos hecho posible lo que hemos logrado. Como dice nuestro vídeo, LACNet lidera la transformación mundial del blockchain para la vida real. Y para la realidad de las exigencias de los corporativos, de los gobiernos, de quien trabaja para servicios a los ciudadanos con todas las garantías. Y agradecemos muchísimo su apoyo y la confianza y